It was supposed to be an ordinary flight. People boarding, storing their luggage, finding their seats. But for one black woman, it became a fight for dignity. A fight against arrogance, prejudice, and disrespect. And by the end of this flight, justice would take a seat of its own. The hum of the airplane filled the air as passengers shuffled down the narrow aisle. Among them was Angela Brooks, a 34-year-old teacher. Soft-spoken, calm, dressed in a neat navy cardigan and jeans. She wasn't rich, she wasn't loud, she wasn't flashy, but she carried herself with grace. Angela found her assigned seat, 12A, a window seat. She placed her small handbag beneath the seat and quietly sat down, gazing out at the tarmac. For her, this flight was more than travel. It was escape. She had saved for months to attend a teacher's conference, one that could change her career. But across the aisle, trouble was brewing. Enter Richard Collins, a man in his late 40s. Tall, broad-shouldered, suit jacket draped over his arm. He walked with an air of entitlement, like the world owed him something. Richard glanced at his boarding pass, then at Angela, and his face twisted in disgust. "Excuse me," he said sharply. "You're in my seat." Angela blinked, confused. She pulled out her ticket. "No, sir, this is 12A. Window seat." Richard's voice rose, drawing attention. No, you don't understand. This is my seat. Move." The cabin grew quiet. Eyes shifted toward them. Angela held her ground, though her hands trembled slightly. "Sir, I'm in the correct seat. Maybe you should double-check your ticket." Richard smirked. "Or maybe you should know your place." Gasps rippled through nearby passengers. The flight attendant, Caroline, hurried over. "Is there a problem here?" Richard puffed his chest. "Yes, this woman has taken my seat, and she refuses to move." Caroline looked at Angela's ticket, then Richard's. Her eyes narrowed. "Sir, you're in 12C. That's the aisle seat. She's in the right place." But Richard wasn't finished. He leaned closer, his voice dripping with arrogance. "You think I'm going to sit squashed on the aisle next to her? She should be in the back where she belongs." Angela's chest tightened. The words cut deep. The silence of the cabin was deafening. Caroline stiffened. "Sir, that's enough. Please take your assigned seat." Richard sneered but sat down reluctantly, slamming his briefcase into the overhead bin. The other passengers avoided eye contact, except one. In row 11, directly in front of Angela, sat Judge Henry Wallace, a man in his late 60s, distinguished silver hair, dressed in a crisp suit. Unknown to Richard, this wasn't just any passenger. This was one of the most respected federal judges in the country. Judge Wallace had heard every word, and he wasn't the kind of man to let injustice slide. But he stayed silent for now, because sometimes silence builds a stage for the loudest truth. The plane took off, engines roaring. Angela sat rigid, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Richard, beside her, muttered insults under his breath. "Ridiculous, taking up space, people like you." Angela's heart pounded. She wanted to disappear. But then she remembered something her late mother always told her. "Baby, dignity isn't something they can give you. It's something you never let them take." Angela lifted her chin. She refused to shrink. Halfway through the flight, turbulence shook the cabin. Richard spilled coffee on his expensive suit and erupted. "This is unbelievable. First, I'm forced to sit next to her. Now this?" This time, the cabin didn't stay silent. Murmurs rose. Passengers exchanged glances of disapproval. The balance was shifting. Judge Wallace finally stood. His deep voice carried authority. "Excuse me, sir. I think you owe this young woman an apology." Richard snapped his head around. "Mind your own business, old man." But the judge didn't flinch. "Do you know who I am?" Richard smirked. "I don't care who you are." The judge's eyes gleamed. "That's unfortunate, because tomorrow morning you'll care very much." The cabin fell silent again. Whispers spread. Richard looked around nervously. For the first time, he wasn't so sure of himself. Angela stared at the judge, confused but hopeful. Who was this man? The flight landed. Passengers gathered their belongings. Richard rushed to the front. eager to escape the awkwardness. But Judge Wallace wasn't finished. At the gate, he approached Angela. "Miss Brooks, you handled yourself with grace. More grace than he deserved." Angela smiled weakly. "Thank you, sir. But who are you?" The judge extended his hand. "Henry Wallace, federal judge." And that man, he glanced toward Richard, who was arguing with another attendant, is about to have the longest week of his life. Angela's eyes widened. The passengers around them watched with fascination. The very man who had tried to humiliate her was now under the scrutiny of someone far more powerful than he could ever imagine. As Angela gathered her bag, Judge Wallace leaned closer and whispered, "You should know, Mr. Collins is currently under investigation, and after what I saw today, I'm making sure your testimony is heard." Angela froze. Testimony? Investigation? What had she just become a part of? The story wasn't over. Not even close. Because sometimes the seat you're forced to sit in becomes the very seat of justice. The passengers filed off the plane. Angela clutched her handbag, her heart still racing from the ordeal. Richard stormed ahead, muttering to himself, red-faced and scowling. Judge Wallace trailed behind calmly, his sharp eyes never leaving Richard. At the gate, Richard barked at an airline employee. "File a complaint. That woman made me uncomfortable. I want her banned from flying." The employee looked uneasy, but before he could respond, Judge Wallace stepped forward. "Actually, I'll be filing a report against you." Richard spun around. "You again? Who do you think you are?" The judge pulled out his ID badge. "Federal Judge Henry Wallace. And after what I witnessed today, you'll be hearing from the courts." Gasps echoed from bystanders. Phones went up. People were recording. For the first time, Richard looked small. Later that evening, Angela sat alone in her hotel room. The moment replayed in her mind over and over. The insults, the stares, the humiliation. Was she ready to fight this battle? She was just a teacher, a nobody in the eyes of the world. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Judge Wallace. I need you to testify. Will you stand with me?" Angela's hands shook. Could she do this? Could she stand against someone like Richard, who clearly had power and influence? Her mother's words returned. "Baby, dignity isn't something they can give you. It's something you never let them take." Angela took a deep breath and typed back one word. "Yes." A week later, Angela walked nervously into the courthouse. The marble floors echoed with each step. Reporters clustered outside, cameras flashing, asking questions she couldn't answer. Richard sat at the defense table, his lawyer beside him. His smugness had returned. Angela swallowed hard, fear bubbling in her chest. Then she saw Judge Wallace. Calm, steady, a silent reassurance. The proceedings began. The judge overseeing the case looked down sternly. "Mr. Collins, you are under investigation for multiple incidents of harassment and discriminatory behavior. Ms. Brooks, you are here today as a witness. Please step forward." Angela's knees almost buckled as she stood, but she walked to the stand, head high. The courtroom hushed. Angela's voice trembled at first, but grew stronger as she spoke. "I was sitting in my assigned seat. He told me to move. He called me names. He said I didn't belong. And he made sure everyone around us heard it." Murmurs spread across the room. Reporters scribbled furiously. Richard's lawyer objected, claiming exaggeration, but Judge Wallace raised a hand. "I was there. I heard every word. And let me make this very clear. What Ms. Brooks said is the truth." Angela glanced at him, gratitude shining in her eyes. This wasn't just her fight anymore. She wasn't alone. Evidence began piling up. Other passengers had recorded videos. Clips of Richard sneering, insulting, and belittling Angela flashed on the courtroom screens. The jury watched in stunned silence. Richard's face turned pale. His bravado crumbled. The world could now see exactly who he was. The judge presiding leaned forward. "Mr. Collins, this isn't just about a seat on a plane. This is about a pattern of behavior. And it stops now." Angela's chest swelled with pride. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen, heard, respected. But just as it seemed justice had arrived, something unexpected happened. As the court recessed, Richard's lawyer leaned over and whispered something into his ear. Richard's smirk returned. He looked straight at Angela and mouthed, "You're finished." Angela frowned, uneasy. Moments later, Judge Wallace approached her. His face was unusually serious. "Angela, I need to warn you. This case just became more dangerous than you realize." Her heart skipped. "What do you mean?" The judge leaned in, lowering his voice. "Richard isn't just some arrogant man on a plane. He has connections, political ones, powerful ones, and they don't want this case to continue." Angela's breath caught in her throat. She looked around the courtroom, suddenly aware of the eyes watching her. The fight wasn't over. It was only beginning. As Angela left the courthouse, a black SUV slowly pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down. A man in a dark suit stared at her, cold, calculating. "Ms. Brooks," he said, "a word of advice. Drop this case. For your own good." The SUV sped off, leaving her trembling on the steps of the courthouse. Angela clutched her bag, her pulse racing. Was she ready for the storm about to come? One thing was certain. This battle was bigger than she ever imagined. To be continued. Please subscribe for part 2 here.